let's start again. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the Infertile Diagnosis Podcast. Today, we have another episode of our fertility talk show, the Fertility Reconnect. No, that's my course. Sorry, the Fertility Connection. Today, we are going to be talking about Infertility Rage. So this is, if you go through infertility, you have experienced this at least once, if not multiple times during your journey. Today we have on Adrienne.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Wee. I'm the creator of the Practically Fertile methodology and the host of the Practically Fertile podcast. I help women get pregnant using Chinese medicine.
Hi, welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Hey, I'm Sarah Clark, founder of Fab Fertile and host of the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast. And using the tools of functional lab testing, we help couples get pregnant naturally.
Thanks for coming back. And Devin.
I am Devin Baeza, the fertility finance coach, and I help women make, save, and manifest money for treatments.
So if you haven't watched us over on YouTube, you have to, because Devin has this best finger thing when she says manifest. It's like glitter.
It's like it's jazz hands. I want you to feel the woo-woo coming at you.
Right.
Woo-woo
with her accountant background.
It's a weird combo, I'm not going to lie. The finance degree mixed with all of the woo-woo life coaching, it's a strange combination. But effective, so that's all that matters.
Right. I think everyone needs to get a little woo-woo in their life. I think it just makes life a little bit more interesting. Today,
you guys know that I was a chemical engineering major, right, in college?
Oh, get out. I didn't know that.
Well, look at you, smarty pants.
All these left brain people. Holy cow.
I'm not going to join that crew. I'm definitely a right one. I can't. I can't even spell to save my life.
In social sciences.
I did early education. I have a degree in early education, so I know how to finger paint really well. Today we are going to be talking about infertility rage. So this is, if you go through infertility, you have experienced this at least once, if not multiple times during your journey. And I feel like sometimes it comes when you least expect it. So, that could be like anything triggers you, right? Like an email from a friend, or, even just the pregnant woman walking by you. You just get these triggers of rage that is just like pure anger. So if we just wanted to kind of talk about it today, share our experiences, and maybe give you like a little help to deal with this infertility rage when it comes on. So who would like to jump in first?
Oh,
Go ahead, jump in.
Me and Sarah are going to compete for the most rage. I can tell it's going to be a problem already. I'll be like, first of all, let me tell you about my husband. Hey, these things are still fresh in my mind. Like it really is a phenomenon. And I think that you are so stressed out at your max capacity when you get into infertility, especially when you start throwing in the hormonal changes. It really can surprise you. Like you can turn into somebody that you are unfamiliar with, and you get enraged about things that did not bother you before. I remember a moment arguing with my husband about when to go grocery shopping. And I said, let's go at halftime, because it was like some super big game, or he wanted to go at halftime so he could watch football. And I was like, everyone's going to be at the store getting supplies for their football game. Whatever the disagreement was, I had to go in the bathroom, lock myself in there and take deep breaths, because I was having visions of punching him in the throat. I could not, I was worried I could not physically control myself, that I was going to punch my husband in the throat over what time to go grocery shopping.
Were you doing treatment at this time?
Yeah. And so what else I learned along the way was that different hormones affect me differently. So like on estrogen, I am a 50% nicer person. Like when I went on birth control, my husband was like, can you just stay on this? because you're really nice to me. And then when I was off, and I think probably testosterone dominant, I mean, I wanted to punch him in the throat a lot. I wanted to murder him over a hot dog one time. Like, these were very real situations in my life. Like, rage was very, very real.
Yeah, that was for, I was not the person that was crying in the corner. I wanted to like beat the shit out of the corner. Like I just was like, yeah. So, and that's kind of how I handle, I don't go to crying first. That's just my pattern. I go to just freaking infuriation. And it really hit me actually during the postpartum period. And I've since heard of postpartum rage. And I was not crying. I was like, I remember being on the phone. And so this was, my daughter was 3, my son was just born, and I was on the phone and everyone was yelling. I was like, what's going on? And I wanted to like, I visualized myself taking the phone and like whipping it across the neighbor's fence. Like I was just like, so, I don't know. I was so stressed out. And during infertility too, like I wasn't crying, but I was like tense and pissed. I was fucking pissed. I'm like, why do I have this diagnosis? Why do I have to deal with this? All my girlfriends are getting pregnant. Every one of them. Like, remember when I was like, one of them came in at like, I was going through the transfer. My best girlfriend came in and she's like, oh, by the way, I'm 8 weeks pregnant. I was just waiting to see if it had worked at that point. I remember being like, what the heck? So I wasn't angry at that point, but I was like, just like blindsided. But yeah, for me, there definitely the rage thing has been now as I've worked on this and I've seen my patterns and I've worked with mindfulness and I've, learned, because a lot of this for me at the base of it is like a severe impatience, like an insane impatience that I got from my dad, because he was always like rushing somewhere. I remember like in high school, I'd be rushing down the halls. I don't know where the hell I was going, but I was gonna get there freaking first. So like this wildness. So for me, sitting in meditation, I'm like, it was the most insane thing. I'm like, how could I ever do it? But it has actually been the best thing I've ever done. So that rage thing, yeah, it's real. And for me, I think it's impatience underneath it.
Yeah. Obviously I had a 9-year journey. So the most bitter I was at the end of year 1, because my 2 best friends that I lived up in Scotland with got pregnant literally 2 weeks apart from each other. So my first year of infertility, I watched them bloom, and it was just like devastating. And they were gonna have their babies around Christmas. And I just remember being so jealous and just angry about it, but I couldn't portray that, right? Like, they're your best friends and you got to be happy for them. And the biggest thing I did, which was huge for me at the time, was ask them, like, has someone taken a photo of you 2 together? And it was like the hardest, like I could almost cry talking about it now, because it's like, I should have been there. I should have been in that photo with them. And yeah, they both have that photo still up in their house today, and I'm so glad I did it for them. But I went the fuck out of town that Christmas and went snowboarding in Colorado with my husband and got drunk. I mean, literally fucking drunk. We have this picture of my husband bear hugging the dog, like passed out on the couch. And that's how I spent that Christmas, because I was so angry and mad and jealous that we weren't in that situation. And here they were having their beautiful babies. And fast forward, I want to say like 6 years, and I've worked on my mental health. I've calmed down. We're now living in Lincoln, and another best friend, we go to visit them, and they're one of those couples that met each other, got pregnant 3 months later, got married. Our infertility journey was like twice as long as their like knowing each other journey. And we get there, and she was like, I have to tell you this right now. And like, I'm not even in the door. She's like, I'm 11 weeks pregnant. I took the morning after pill. I didn't know I was pregnant. And like, I was just like, fuck, all right, where's the red wine? And that night, one of the same girls who I was up in Scotland with emailed me to tell me she was pregnant with her 3rd. And I remember like I was obviously drunk at that stage when I got the email, and just bawling my eyes out in bed. But the difference of like my mental health between those 2 situations which I think the latter one, the one finding out your friend's pregnant after taking the morning after pill, like that's got to be the biggest slap in the face. My mental health was so much better that I wasn't actually enraged as much as I was, after the first year of watching your friends getting pregnant. The rage was like it was sadness, right? Like, is this ever going to happen for me? It turned into a very different emotion. And it's really funny, the different stages of rage or emotions you go through, and especially if you have a really long journey and you are able to take control of your mental health through it, it's still a slap in the face, right?
Well,
like it's still a slap in the face, but you're able to like handle those situations a lot more better, right? A little bit more grace.
Well, and what you just said is so interesting, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this yet. So when you feel this rage of other people getting pregnant, which granted, there was times that I gave probably a lot of like dirty looks to pregnant ladies at restaurants, but the actual rage usually comes when it's somebody you know, when it's somebody you're close to. So what you just described about your friend and the morning after pill, I think this is part of the reason that we feel that rage, is because when it's somebody else, you can see that they're pregnant, but you don't know much else about it. And, you can make up whatever story you want in your head. When it's somebody you know, like for me, it was a roommate in college. God, I hope she never watches this. A roommate in college who, drugs, drinking. She got a DUI. She messaged me about that. She was going to jail, found out she was pregnant by, a sort of a dirtbag boyfriend. And this is in the middle of our fertility journey. And for whatever reason, that pregnancy really got to me because I knew how imperfect she was. And then you can't help but compare your own life. And so I think that there's some sort of, I know I was raised Southern Baptist. So there was some sort of idea of like, there's a God in the sky who is just, and he dishes out babies as blessings to people who deserve it. Yeah. And so like the injustice of it, when she didn't want this kid, she was drunk and found out she was pregnant, like while she was drunk and like going to jail. And I was just like, you deserve a baby and not me. Me and my husband are like married, responsible, doing what we're supposed to do. The injustice of it really, really shook me. And when you know the details like that, I feel like it gets to you at a whole different level.
Do you think that's like some of the issue though, is that we're taking it, that it is like personal towards us, like not our fault, but like, yeah, we make it about us, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
When it has nothing to do with us.
It has nothing to do with you. Everybody else's pregnancies have nothing to do with you. Even like your experience from one pregnancy to the next might, be completely different. But that knowing that it didn't matter what I knew logically. In my body, I was enraged. I remember going to a Zumba class and I was running into people because I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like instead of focusing on the steps, I was so obsessed with how enraged I was that this girl was having a baby and not me. And then she messaged me, of course, why don't you guys have any kids yet?
Yeah.
So that text back was full of like passive aggressive rage, like, well, so far it's been $10,000 and 2 surgeries and a miscarriage. So hopefully soon and possibly never, fuck off.
But it's interesting though, when we see these other people getting pregnant and because it's like, just because they're getting pregnant doesn't mean we can't, like there's no, as you say, the blessings from God and the baby's given out that she's got hers and I won't get mine. And, but yeah, like I hear it all the time. Like it's so common. And yeah, so for when I was going through it, I just went into this like full like planning mode because I didn't want to like, a lot of it is my issues of I haven't wanted to feel anything, right? I'm like, I'm going to plan, I'm going to like achieve, I'm going to get this shit done. And then meanwhile, if I had like felt what I was feeling, I probably wouldn't have been so like stressed and tense and that anger. But yeah, because crying, ooh, that's weakness. You know, I don't want to be, I'm not a crier. Meanwhile, that's like powerful and like cleansing, and you know, you need to get that shit out. That's still something I don't naturally go to crying. That's just not who I am. But I know when I do, it helps me.
It's funny how we all like go to rage, right? It's an easy emotion. We feel justified. It makes us, there must be like some scientific thing of like, it gives you endorphins or something, because I think it's the most easiest emotion to go to is that pity party, anger, jealousy. It's much harder, like you say, Sarah, to really feel what you're feeling. Let yourself feel that, cry it out. And I'm the same way. Like I had the narrative, I'm not a crier, you know, emotions are weak. And like it just sucks that we are like that, because when we are going through something like infertility, it doesn't help our situation whatsoever. Like on a, you know, a cell level, all that infertility rage is fucking your adrenals, it's fucking your hormones, it's like messing with your gut. I'm sure, Adrienne, you can tell us a little bit about like Chinese medicine of like what, you know, that's the anger's doing to your chakra, you know?
Yeah, I think you guys are going to find this really interesting. So there are definitely, you know, emotional and physical causes of rage, according to Chinese medicine, and it has to do with the organ liver.
Yes.
So liver, but, you know, before you think that you need a liver detox or anything, just, you know, liver in Chinese medicine is what controls emotions. And liver is the organ. So like, you know, Chinese medicine, every organ has a function, a job, and liver's job is to make sure that your energy flows smoothly. So if you think of your energy flow as like traffic, when something gets stuck, you get a traffic jam in your body. And that's what the liver does, is to make sure that the traffic flows smoothly. But liver is most affected by emotions. So it's important to know that when you get to the rage point, it's been building up. So everybody has liver energy blockage, or just because we experience daily stress, environmental, life, whatever. But when you get to the rage point, that's when your liver energy is just so stuck that it explodes. And so on an emotional level, you know, all the big fat negatives, having to go through dealing with other people's pregnancies, all the disappointments every single month, all the sadness, all the grief, all that is going to contribute to the liver energy blockage. And then you have the physical stuff. When you're going through hormone treatments, you know, your liver is working overtime to process through all those drugs that you're taking. So that on another level contributes to the liver energy blockage. And then people, and you know, in Chinese medicine too, is like, you know, we talk a lot about what you were born with, the constitution, you know, your tendencies. And people who are prone to liver qi stagnation or liver energy blockage, they tend to be type A, perfectionist, you know, all overachievers. So if you are already a perfectionist, overachiever type A, and already have a certain level of liver qi stagnation, compounded with all these emotional and physical stress that you're going through, your liver is just going to explode at some point, and it turns into anger. It comes across as anger, rage. So, you know, that's a term that we actually call liver fire. Like your liver is exploding.
I'm so glad now I have something to call it. The next time I want to murder my husband over a hot dog, I'll be like, listen, my liver is on fire right now.
So totally. And there are,
you guys could
and there are real consequences to liver qi stagnation that goes unresolved, because liver for fertility controls ovulation. So if there's no energy flow to your ovaries and your uterus, you'll run into problems with egg quality. You'll run into problems with delayed ovulation. If you have this liver fire, this rage, it might even cause early ovulation. So it affects your fertility on many, many, many different levels. That's why mindset is so important. and working on mental health, because that is the one of the things that will absolutely help you cope with stress and help soothe the energy flow so that it's going to the right places.
Right. I think that the other danger is that, so anger is a secondary emotion. It is much more, it's easier for us to feel, like Sarah was talking about, because we can do something with it, right? Like anger is powerful. Anger, what Monica was saying, has a physical response. It gives us adrenaline. We're pumped. We're like, yeah, I'm going to go do something about it. And you feel like, you don't feel weak. You don't feel like feeling sad, feeling grief physically, literally makes you feel like shrinking, a fetal position, crying. You are not able to defend yourself from a saber-toothed tiger while you're crying in a fetal position on the floor. Like, it is not powerful. It is vulnerable. It makes you very open to attack. So I think that at an evolutionary standpoint, there's a reason that we protect ourselves with anger. But the problem is when we think anger is just anger, and the problem is whatever external stimuli made us angry, we never solve anything, because that's not what's under it. What's under anger is sadness, frustration, overwhelm, humiliation, these vulnerable emotions that, unless you dig below the anger and you deal with what else is really going on, nothing changes in your life, nothing improves.
Yeah, and I think it's, really easy to, or a good point to point out that you see a lot of people, maybe like yourself, Devin, who just worked on the emotional side and maybe released some of that blockage that Adrienne was just talking about. And that was all that you needed to do to reconnect those fertility links. Sometimes when we talk about, especially me and Sarah, all these big changes you need to do, some people have to do that. I had to do that. I couldn't just deal with my anger and then that was going to be that. Some people really have to dig deep and change big things. But for some of us, if you just explore doing those emotional work, side of things, and realize that all these emotions just aren't emotions. They have a huge impact on, all your organs in your body, your brain, your liver, your gut function, your digestion. It's all connected, and we just don't have that knowledge. We're not taught that they're one. Everything that we do has an effect on your body, and it's not, we don't even have to, I don't even feel like you have to get super scientific about it or have like a really deep knowledge about it. You can feel it, just like you said. When you feel anger, you feel completely different than if you feel joy or if you feel sadness. Your body reacts to it in a physical way. It's just not thoughts, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is kind of being able to, well, instead of reacting, to respond, which that can be difficult, right? If you were triggered, you're freaking triggered and you're like, you're gone. You see that post that someone, I know when Beyonce announced that she was pregnant, like the first time, and people and the Instagram lost their shit. I believe she's pregnant. Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Like everyone was so angry about it in the fertility community. Not everyone, but like a lot of people were quite angry about it, because it's that pie again. Well, if she's got it, what about me? Like, why is it not working for me? And so those triggers, and then like we do a mindfulness course, and it's kind of like, you don't know the struggle that Beyonce had. I don't know if I think she had to have treatments. We don't know what's, going on in other people's lives. And even though we feel, infertility affects all aspects of your lives, and it is very consuming, we don't know what's happening in someone else's life. And so like reacting and going down that rabbit hole, it's only hurting yourself, which is hard though when you find yourself getting triggered by seeing, like I'm coaching people being triggered by seeing families because they're dealing with secondary infertility, and they see a family and it's like extremely triggering, and very painful. But to recognize that, to see how long, I think it's like we're allowed to have a bad day, but does it go on for weeks and months and years? So how do you become aware of what's happening?
Well, and what you're saying is so the nerdy, I'm going to give it a financial term here. zero-sum game. So when you're looking at numbers, and if the numbers go up here, that means they go down here, which means everything always has to equal out to 0. And that is the underlying problematic belief, and it becomes a money block because of one of fertility's own money blocks. Because of this situation, you start to believe if somebody else has a baby, that lowers my chance of having a baby. Like, kind of like there's somebody in the sky just throwing down babies and there's only a limited number of them. So every time you see somebody else with one, that triggers you into feeling like now there's less of a chance for me. And that is not true.
Yeah, that's a story.
Enough babies to go around. Even if you have 8 friends and 7, of them are pregnant, that doesn't affect your chances of getting pregnant. They have nothing to do with each other. They are completely independent. And to be aware of that belief that somehow somebody else's pregnancy has anything to do with you, that's where you have to start with the awareness that it doesn't affect your chances. It doesn't have anything to do with you. It's just showing you what matters to you. It's reminding you of what you want so much in your life, and that the pain you're feeling, the grief you're feeling, is something you can process, and that it's possible to still be happy for someone else while you're sad for yourself.
Do you think that, this anger and jealousy and rage that it goes into our own self-pity narrative, like you just said, like, well, if they have that, that means I'm not going to have that anymore? Is it an easy transition for us to build these negative stories in our head so we start protecting ourselves?
Yeah, we talk about that in our mindfulness group. Am I having a pity party? And that people get triggered by that. What do you mean pity party? I'm allowed, but maybe you have been down there for weeks and months. So are you having a pity party? And maybe you feel maybe you can have one for a whole day and say, screw this, I'm going under the covers. I'm going to, binge whatever and feel those emotions and just like go down there. But if you're going down there for weeks and months, it is very, very important to get support.
Well, I think that people are triggered by it because the way you grow up hearing it. So it's usually you're like crying about something your brother did to you, and then your mom's like, stop having a pity party. And so what it really feels like to me is when somebody is invalidating my feelings. And one of the most powerful realizations for me was, what if there was no such thing as self-pity? What if we just called it grief? What if it was just sadness? What if it was just grieving? Because I feel like with a pity party, there's a layer of judgment for ourselves that we shouldn't be feeling that way, or that it's not okay to feel that way, or that it's only okay to be sad for other people and not ourselves. It's okay to be sad for yourself. It's healthy. And you have to deal with that, because if you call it anything else, then you're not really dealing with it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's like recognizing how long you're being sad for yourself though, right? So no matter what you call it, yeah, of course. I mean, that's probably, my biggest thing is actually allowing myself to be sad, to feel those emotions, because you've pushed them away for so long. Or I was told as a kid, Wendy the whiner isn't invited, so my subconscious was told your emotions aren't valid, and then I grew up being a bitch. like that's just now I can look at it from like a psychological point of view or a subconscious point of view of how I got to not being a crier and not dealing with my emotions. But yeah, I think what Sarah's trying to say is, recognizing that sometimes your anger or your sadness or whatever those emotions that you're pinning yourself down, you're not actually allowing yourself to feel them and move on. You're holding on to them because it's safe for you to hold on to them. It makes you feel better, and allowing yourself to be raged or be mad or jealous on a level where you are affecting your fertility health, it's not good. And maybe recognizing, like, if you are, not when you're doing treatment, like that shit is hard. Like no one's gonna call you out for not being a joyful person while you're on all this medication. But maybe in between stages, if you find that you are just pissed off all the time, or you're super mad or super jealous, that's the time to start looking at yourself and going, okay, how do I move through this? How do I release these emotions and, clear up, my issues?
Yeah, to recognize they're there in the first place, because we're in like automatic pilot. We don't even know that we're like, oh wait, we're being triggered all over the place, and we're going through our day and we're like freaking pissed off. We're in like, I think like we're in traffic. I remember, this is for me, like in traffic, so impatient in traffic. This was early on, but I literally was in traffic and I was, why is the person in front of me going so freaking slow? We're at a stoplight, and I like literally nudged them like with my freaking front bumper. I'm like, get the fuck out of the way. I was like because I was just so pissed and in such a hurry. And I'm like, why is everyone, and I know that when I'm overstressed, if I'm in places where I find everyone's in my way, I'm like, why is everyone walking so slowly? Why is everyone driving so slowly? Why? Then I'm like, oh boy. Oh, Sarah, you got some shit going on. You need to go, you need to step back. Like, where's your self-care? You probably took on too much stuff. Like, so that's my trigger. Other people, it could be something else, but mine goes into like speed and then blaming others. And I'm like full reaction, not responding. And otherwise you can be like, I remember being in traffic, never letting anyone in. I would never let anyone in ahead of me. Fuck you, you're not getting in. Now I'm like waving everybody in, go ahead. And I'm like, we're all smiling, laughing. I'd be like, no, you're not getting in. So yeah, I had like just horrible rage for years. Right. I thought I was just an asshole, but anyways.
And I think you recognize that once you start doing the work. I mean, I have a similar rage. Sorry. I have this bike, is this cargo bike. People in Europe will know what I'm talking about, but I ride it around Hawaii and I get honked out all the time. Sometimes it's like nice, and sometimes people are like, you're not a car, get off the road. And so this lady honked at me meanly and I gave her the bird. And I was like, oh, I can't believe you just did that. Like, you usually give people shakas if they're mean to you, just be like, peace, love, you're in Hawaii, you don't need to go fast. And I flipped her off, and like I was like, all right, girl, you need to go do some mental work, because that was not cool. But yeah, I mean, it's being self-aware, right? Like, if you are being that dick to your husband because you're arguing over what time you want to go shopping, like, that's when you need to start realizing, okay, this is an issue. This is, I know the community hates it when it's like, just relax, but there is a very scientific, realization of that we need to really, take a step back and check our mental health and find ways that we can relax in our own heads. It's not about taking a bubble bath and going on vacation. It is real work. It is hard work, because we've been doing this for years and we're still giving people the middle finger every once in a while.
Well, sometimes they deserve it. So there's that. Like, I actually have a visualization at red lights, or when I'm behind slow people, a visualization of money falling from the sky. It's one of some of the work that we do, is coming up with visualizations about money. And I do that because I am so enraged driving. And now my kids have started picking up on, they hear what you say. Yeah. And so I'm like, I sound like literally an enraged sailor while I'm driving. Like, it is unreasonable what I am calling these people. Like, I would never, if my mom heard me, oh my gosh. Like, so I have the visualization of money, and it gives me a moment and some peace. And then I know it's like a cliche, but literally counting to 10 gives your brain time to respond. So like Sarah was saying, so you're not reacting, you feel the trigger, you're aware of it, how it feels in your body. Some people's chest gets hot, some people's throat gets tight, be aware of the physical symptoms and count to 10 and choose a reaction. Like, that is the actual work, day in and day out. To get some mindfulness and to get some more peace in your life, because it absolutely affects you at every single level.
Yeah. And if you need a timeout, take your time out. And maybe that timeout is in the bathroom, like with the door locked, and like, I just need my time. Like, I had times in my life where my husband's breathing and his chewing drove me crazy. I'm like, why are you breathing so loudly? And how come you're chewing? Like, how come you have to chew so loudly? And now I'm like, oh, like, talk about like, what the hell's wrong with me? I'm some perfect person over here. But yeah, those like small little things where I'm like, what, and there's other stuff going on. There's other shit that I'm not dealing with. I haven't come to terms with, whatever it is. I'm frustrated. And usually a lot of mine is like frustrated that something, again, is not going as quickly as I want it to go. And especially in the fertility journey, that is like time is the thing. Like, you're talking about a month where like, you had to hold things for a month, and that was like absolutely heartbreaking. And that is like, you're not alone in that. It's like so common.
Well, I have experienced rage, even though my experience is a little bit different when it comes to fertility. But yeah, like I used to be that person that in traffic, like Sarah, very impatient. I would just yell at people for no reason. I think after a couple of failed relationships, I started to realize it's probably me. It's probably not the other person, but I was like, it's probably me. So I do understand. I absolutely know the type of rage that you're experiencing. And I think too, like, one thing that might help is just to think about your liver. Think about what it's doing to your fertility. Like, once your liver gets stuck, nothing is going to the ovaries and the uterus, the most important organs, to have a baby. So it might help to think about that. And then all the, definitely in Chinese medicine, when you have liver qi stagnation or liver fire or whatever, you definitely experience physical symptoms, chest tightness, headaches, things like digestive issues. So those are all, everything is connected. So, you have to pay attention to that.
Yeah, 100%. Like it matters, and it's frustrating because I think a lot of the times there's so many things, right? It's really overwhelming when you're going through an infertility journey, and people are like, change this, change that, do this. And now we're here like, control your rage, and that's like the one thing you've held on to, and you've, maybe cherished your rage and your jealousy. But, changing it up and just noticing, like you say, Devin, like when you're in the car, like if you are feeling these emotions, and I think it's great, like getting a practice where you do something absolutely ridiculous, and laugh at yourself or laugh at the situation, it changes those patterns in your brain. And it's one of the hardest things to do, especially when we're talking, most of us are late 20s, early 30s, we're getting up to our 40s. We have these patterns that have just been drilled into us. And even like for our generation, we were led to believe that you couldn't change it, right? Like you were born the way you were, you couldn't like change your brain, and now we know that you can change, you can grow. And so it's really important to start thinking about these things. I guess maybe put it one more thing on the list of to-dos.
Well, I would say that to be aware of the judgment you place on yourself. So in those moments where you completely overreact, instead of feeling guilty, instead of labeling yourself, right, I'm such a bitch, how I remember saying, how could I be a jealous friend? Like I was never jealous. I was not that person. And, how could I be this terrible of a friend? Like I really judged myself for how terrible I was feeling, which only makes it worse, so forgive yourself for whatever has happened and the reactions that you're having, give yourself some grace that you would give your best friend. You're going through a lot right now. It's understandable, to expect yourself to be perfect and respond perfectly on top of everything else is a ridiculous expectation that you need to let go of.
Yeah, exactly.
To be curious, not critical, kind of like, oh, well, shit, that's interesting. I'm having a meltdown and then in traffic, or I'm like picking at my husband for his breathing. Oh, what else is going on under there? Not to criticize like ourselves. A lot of that judgment. Yeah.
Giving yourself grace and just moving forward, picking yourself up after, an episode and realizing like, okay, I'm human, I'm normal. And knowing that, when you go through this infertility journey and then you start changing up things too, it's like a double whammy, right? Like you're still dealing with all these emotions and they're not going to go away, so you are, dealing almost with two things at once. Some people deal with things afterwards. And if you've chosen to deal with it now, it is going to maybe be a little bit harder, a little bit more of a struggle. But I definitely think, maybe Sarah can attest to this, it's a better option than having to deal with it after you've had your kids and dealing with all the ramifications of not taking care of your health, not taking care of your mental health. So I think it is, really important just to be self-aware, right? Like that's like the first step of any kind of big change, is being aware of who you are, what your triggers are, and maybe the little steps that you can do to change it up.
Well, you might as well, because now it's shitty anyways. So why not go all in? This sucks. You might as well go, talk to your counselor or go to your coach and like work through this shit right now. Just call it, the shittiest year ever. Come to terms with it. Deal with all of this now so it doesn't drag out. It provides a lot of opportunity to see what's going wrong. Like just what Sarah said, be curious. Why do I feel like I want to, why am I so throat punchy today? What else was it? You start seeing connections and patterns. Why do I believe this? Why am I so pissed at my husband? I remember when he biggie sized his soft drink when he went to go get us food. And I was like, you motherfucker, we are trying to save money right now for treatment. And you paid $1 more for that soda when you could have had water at home. Enraged. Like, what else is going on, little Devin? Like, please tell me, like, obviously it's not about your large Sprite. Like, that stuff still kind of irritates me, but like there's opportunity for growth here. So everything that isn't working in your life is now brought to the surface, and it is saying, here I am, deal with me. And now is the perfect time to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. And it might not seem like it, but you have the time, right? This is, if we look at infertility as a time game, using your time wisely to improve yourself and become a better version of yourself is going to be a win-win for everyone in your life, for you and the people around you, and eventually your future children.
Yeah, taking the time now for preconception health. So like me, you're not dealing with the postpartum rage. Other people obviously postpartum depression, and then your kids' health, your health. I like this from Elizabeth Manning. She talks about mothering yourself now, like really taking the time to, what is this journey? And it's hard to get lessons when you're in this journey, but what is it trying to tell you, and how do you slow down, and how do you really listen to what feels right for you?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't even think you necessarily need to know what the journey is trying to teach you. You just kind of like embrace the change that can come from the journey, because I don't know if you can ever, you got to look back and see it, right? Sometimes I just don't ever think you're in a shit situation and go, oh yeah, this is teaching me patience, fuck yeah, loving it, like you just wouldn't, right? But I think on that note, we're going to end for today. Thank you so much for joining me, ladies, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode on infertility rage and how maybe you can start noticing your own and how you can change it up a little and how it will improve your overall fertility health. Have a beautiful weekend, and until next week, we'll see you later. A few more things before you go. You can find all the links to anything talked about on this podcast, especially how to connect with our special guest. While you're down there, make sure you leave us a rating or a review. It would totally help this podcast out. If you would like to connect with me more, head over to the website. It's mymindfulme.com. There's a free membership over on the website where you can connect with like-minded people and really push your journey forward. We also have all the videos that I do up there for you, and the newsletter goes out about 2-3 times a month. And we also have pre-registration for the Fertility Reconnect course. It's a 6-week course to help you really dial in what's going on in your body, what foods you can and cannot eat, and we're going to dig deep into the mental blocks you're having and how it could be affecting your fertility health. So that's it. Thank you once again for joining us on the Infertile Diagnosis, and have a beautiful day.